Hi, and welcome to another episode of Eyes Wide Open, a daily short podcast on the topic of Mashiach and the upcoming redemption, dedicated in memory of Rabbi Tzibon Alexander Cohen Kogan Hashem Yinkin Dome. Today is a heavy day, as we all know. The news coming out of Israel is very, very heavy news. And I wanted to share a little bit about the Torah's perspective, specifically from a Mashiach standpoint, how we process such news, because there are several answers, several ideas brought down in several different places how to process completely unfathomable losses and suffering that the entire Jewish people felt. There's a famous story that we recite every Yom Kippur with the 10 martyrs, these 10 legendary sages who were murdered to sanctify God's name. And in the Yom Kippur prayers, when we tell the story, it records that the angels go to God and they ask God, is this Torah and is this his reward? How could this possibly be happening? And God says, Shteik kach ala b'rtzoni, be quiet, so has it arisen in my will. But there's another way of reading it, which is be quiet, through this they rise in my will. In other words, through this they become even more precious to me. Through this they are ascending even higher. It's a similar idea that is brought down with Moses and Aaron, that Moses, that when Aaron lost two of his 4 sons, at the day the temple was inaugurated, Moses turned to Aaron and said, I had an inkling, I'm close to God, I had an inkling that God was planning to sanctify the temple with 2 very great holy people, the holiest there were. And I figured it was me and you. But now that he took your sons, I realized they were even closer to God. That their loss is a sign how close, how special they were to God. And likewise, there were many such answers, such ideas brought down in various places. But the Rebbe generally rejected these approaches. It says with this story with Moses and Aaron that Moses says to Aaron that now we know how great your sons truly are. It says that Aaron was quiet. Aaron was quiet. Aaron didn't respond. And this was considered incredible praise of Aaron, that he was quiet. And taken at face value, it's the idea that Aaron didn't have anything positive to say, so he kept quiet. But the Rebbe said that Aaron's silence was not a lack of response. Aaron's silence was his response. And Moses had an explanation for Jewish suffering, and Aaron didn't. Perhaps because Moses wasn't, and then their father, he was their uncle. And he had some sort of intellectual idea that this shows that they're closer to God. But Aaron was silent. Aaron said, I refuse to accept any explanation. I have no words. I have nothing positive to say about this conversation. I have no explanation possible for this. This is not okay. And there's no explanation that you can give me that can allow for it to be okay. And it was specifically Aaron's response, which the Torah records as being so profound, so beautiful, because that is Judaism's response, not to explain away, not to say, but this, but that, but V'yidem Aaron is saying that we have no positive things to say about it. We don't let God off the hook in a very emotionally charged speech from the late 80s. The Rebbe talked about all the great suffering that we keep continuing to experience, and despite everything we have experienced, more suffering comes along. And the Rebbe talked about all the answers you could give, they don't matter anymore. And then why are we still suffering? And the Rebbe said the only possible answer is God is trying to get us to recognize that we need to return to God and say, God, enough already. This is too much. You need to end this. You need to not just put put an end to this particular challenge, this particular war, but put an end to wars, put an end to challenges, put an end to exile, and bring Mashiach in a permanent way that will truly put an end to all of this. And this is Aaron's response. Aaron's very resounding response, that we don't let God off the hook. We don't act as a defense attorney to God and say, God, we know ultimately you know what you're doing and you have your reasons, but we turn to God and we demand enough already. How much more are we meant to take? This needs to be the end. We need you to bring Mashiach today, to put an end to this today, to bring the Tchias HaMesim, the resurrection of the dead today, so we can all be together again. And we will not accept anything less.